On the outskirts of a small town nestled between dense forests and desolate plains lies a stretch of highway. This road, known to locals as the Desolate Stretch, carries with it tales of terror and tragedy. Stories whispered around campfires and recounted in hushed tones in the town's only diner tell of eerie encounters and unexplained disappearances. But among all the tales, there are those that claim to be true, etched in the memory of those who have witnessed the horrors firsthand. It was a moonless night when Jake, a weary traveler, found himself driving along the desolate stretch. The only illumination came from his headlights, casting long shadows that seemed to dance along the edges of the road. As he rounded a bend, he spotted a figure standing by the side of the highway, thumb outstretched in hopes of catching a ride. Feeling a pang of sympathy, Jake slowed down and pulled over. The hitchhiker, a young woman with a haunted look in her eyes, climbed into the passenger seat without a word. She muttered something about needing to get home and thanked Jake for stopping. As they drove on in silence, Jake couldn't shake the feeling of unease that settled over him. He stole glances at the woman beside him, noticing how she seemed to stare off into the darkness beyond the windshield, as if searching for something or someone. Suddenly, the woman let out a blood-curdling scream, causing Jake to swerve the car to a stop. He turned to her, his heart racing, only to find the passenger seat empty. Confused and terrified, Jake stepped out of the car and scanned the area with his flashlight, but there was no sign of the hitchhiker anywhere. Shaken to the core, Jake quickly got back behind the wheel and sped away from the spot, vowing never to pick up another hitchhiker on the desolate stretch again. But little did he know, the woman he had encountered was just one of many who had mysteriously vanished along that lonely road. The story of the phantom truck has been passed down through generations in the small town near the desolate stretch. Legend has it that late one night, a young couple was driving home from a nearby town when they encountered a massive truck barreling down the highway behind them. Despite their attempts to speed up and lose the truck, it stayed hot on their tail, its headlights blinding in the darkness. Desperate, the couple veered off onto a side road, hoping to shake off their pursuer, but the truck followed, relentless in its pursuit. As they raced down the narrow road, the couple realized with horror that the truck wasn't just chasing them, it was trying to run them off the road. With no other options, they prayed for a miracle as they approached a sharp curve ahead. In a split-second decision, the couple braced themselves and swerved off the road, narrowly avoiding a collision with the truck. But when they looked back, the phantom truck had vanished into thin air, leaving behind nothing but the echoes of its roaring engine. To this day, locals claim to hear the ghostly sound of a truck engine late at night on the desolate stretch, a reminder of the dangers that lurk in the darkness. Nestled at the halfway point along the desolate stretch is a seemingly innocuous rest stop, a haven for weary travelers seeking respite from the long, lonely road. But for those who dare to linger after nightfall, the rest stop reveals its true sinister nature. It was past midnight when Sarah, a young woman driving home alone, pulled into the deserted parking lot of the rest stop. Exhausted from hours of driving, she welcomed the chance to stretch her legs and use the facilities before continuing on her journey. As she made her way to the dimly lit restroom, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Every shadow seemed to conceal unseen eyes, and the air was heavy with an oppressive silence that sent shivers down her spine. Ignoring her growing unease, Sarah hurried into the restroom and locked herself in a stall, desperate to escape the eerie atmosphere outside. But as she sat in the darkness, she heard a faint scratching sound coming from the stall next to hers, followed by a low guttural growl that froze her blood. Terrified, Sarah remained perfectly still, praying that whatever lurked on the other side of the partition would go away. But the scratching grew louder, accompanied by the sound of heavy breathing that seemed to fill the entire restroom. With trembling hands, Sarah reached for her phone and dialed 911, her voice barely above a whisper as she begged for help. But before she could utter another word, the scratching abruptly stopped, replaced by an eerie silence that was somehow even more terrifying. Minutes passed like hours as Sarah huddled in the darkness, waiting for the sound of approaching sirens that never came. Eventually, she mustered the courage to peek out from the stall, only to find the restroom empty and devoid of any signs of life.